everybody, what's going on? It's your girl, Jacqueline, Hilary, Simone, Lawson, shaman, spiritual teacher, and here to assist you in getting the most effective, transformative, and progressive guidance for your self love and your relationships. So, today we're going to talk about self awareness, and of course, this is for the blueprint. And so, what I really just want to do is start jumping into the benefits of self awareness, and not so much the benefits, we kind of already know that, but things to look out for when you're jumping into this process and this journey that's forever of self awareness. So, we want to look at, let's start with the basic, the things that are surface, I think, the more obvious things, I guess we would say. So, looking at our habits. Obviously, we want to be self aware about how our habits are, how our behaviors are, how our actions and reactions are to things and people and situations. We want to be aware of our reasoning, okay? Um, for the times when we're reacting to things or when we start to feel emotional about certain things in certain situations, especially in relationships or just in general, being a human being, feeling that maybe we're feeling attacked or maybe we're feeling offended or left out. Regardless of the situation that you're going through, what is your reasoning for why you're reacting the way that you are reacting? Okay, because there are a lot of situations where we react without thinking or without actually understanding completely where the other person is coming from, and we react in a way that isn't exactly in alignment with the situation, and that's where overreacting comes into play. Okay, so with our self-awareness, we also want to be self-compassionate. Okay, being compassionate with yourself allows you the opportunity to see yourself as the human being with real life human emotions that you are and that you have. Okay, it gives you a lot more ease going into a situation and reminiscing on a situation, and it allows you the opportunity to see yourself again as a real human being with real human emotions, giving yourself a break, and then it gives you a lot of ease and clarity because you're not bashing yourself over the head, figuratively. Okay, self nurture. So we nurture our loved ones, we nurture our pets, you know. Rarely do we talk about nurturing ourselves. We talk about self love and we talk about self care, but let's talk about the self nurture, okay? So, I like to talk about our negative emotions, the ones that have us wanting to crawl up underneath our covers as think of yourself as okay, so when you hear a screaming child, okay, when a child is like freaking out in its crib, okay, that feeling you feel when it just like that shiver up your spine when the baby starts crying, that's exactly how I'm able to relate the way that the emotions are going in your body. So that's kind of how it feels. It's like everything's freaking out, you don't know what to do, you kind of freeze up, you don't know how to proceed. So going to that part of you, going to yourself in those situations, and um, distributing as much self nurture as possible is exactly what we want to do in those situations. Treating yourself as that screaming child, because that part of you is that screaming child. Our inner child never goes away, so when that inner child part of you, when that part of you, and that emotion of you, that feeling that you have that's making you freeze up in your tracks at that moment is happening, you want to definitely implement self nurture talks to yourself. You want to start implementing, self nurturing hugs, whatever you can come up with to make you feel better and let you know from a subconscious to a conscious level, while consciously and actively doing this, nurturing yourself so that you can progress in the way that you want to, so you know that you have your back, you can trust your decisions, etc. Just do it. Absolutely. You can never skimp on the self nurture, okay? You are your first best friend, and so it's highly important that you treat yourself as such. Self understanding. So, being your first best friend It is highly important that you go out of your way to understand yourself like you would your best friend. You can't just be friends with somebody and not go out of your way to, as they say, into me I see for intimacy, understand them. Okay, so you need to go out of your way to understand yourself, understand how you're feeling. So we're going back to the reasoning too, the reactions and the actions and the reactions. So you definitely want to make sure that you are doing your due diligence in understanding how you feel. I don't know if this is the first video that you're watching for the blueprint, or the third, or the fifth, but in one of the videos, I did say that it's probably maybe all of them. It's extremely important that you do not shame yourself for when you realize that you've done things that maybe you're not happy about, that you continue to just notice them and see them as something that you want to fix or change or nurture or up level, or whatever word that helps you progress from where you are to where you want to be. Do that. You definitely just want to implement as much self-understanding as much as possible, and definitely take all of what you get from this blueprint to your own alignment. It's highly important that you don't take anything that you hear from this course as I have to do this, 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 and this. I don't want you to overwhelm yourself. I really want you to go in alignment with what's your best alignment, okay? And that's it, because that's really all that's going to actually serve you. So please keep that in mind. You can never go wrong with treating yourself as your first best friend. You are always with yourself. You were born with yourself. You're going to die with yourself. You sleep with yourself. You eat with yourself, etc., etc., etc. Okay? And so you can never be too much of a best friend to yourself. So that self-understanding is highly important. With that, the self-forgiveness. Now, just like a friend, okay, and the best friend that you are to yourself, you are going to hurt your own feelings. You're going to disappoint yourself. You're going to say things to yourself that you don't mean. You're going to say mean things to yourself that maybe you mean at the time, but you don't actually wish negativity on yourself. So it's really, really highly important that we self-forgive. That when we're looking back on the things that we've done in the past and we're going through those cycles of self-shaming, that we take a moment to stop. Stop. And self-forgive, okay? It's really, really important because, like I said, you were your first best friend. You're with yourself all the time, and you don't want to be like Erykah Badu's Bag Lady, carrying those emotions with you all the time, weighing you down. Your lessons are meant for you to learn, forgive yourself of, and move on, okay? We don't want to be carrying, because when we're carrying our oh, I did this, or oh shit, I did that, or this, that, and the other, when we're carrying that stuff with us, it's not in the past anymore. It's in our present, and it's in our manifesting future. So it's extremely important that we forgive ourselves, let it go, move on, okay? Self-friendship, as we jumped into before. You are your first best friend. So again, you definitely want to make sure that you are treating yourself as such, giving yourself the benefit of the doubt, okay? Yes, there's tough love, all right? But there's a fine line, in my opinion, between tough love and self-hate. And you have to make sure that you know exactly where you are with that, because you could go from, get up, you got this, to calling yourself a bitch, be like, come on, bitch, what the fuck's wrong with you, blah, blah, blah. That's not constructive. And let me tell you, for those of you who would like to argue that it is, tell me that you wake up in the morning with those thoughts. Say them directly to your best friends, like, not as you were saying them to yourself, but say it to them, like, what's wrong with you, okay? And expect them to be okay with that. Expect them to feel loved by you. Expect them to feel encouraged by you. They wouldn't, because it's mean. It's not progressive, okay? It's not going to help you get to where you want to go. So the next time you think that the way that you're talking to yourself is progressive, I want you to think about whether or not you would say those things to someone you actually care about, with the intention to help them progress, okay? Now with this, it can get kind of tricky, because sometimes we do talk to ourselves, like I'm like not from California. Sometimes we do talk to ourselves in a shitty way. Sorry, I was trying to think of another way to say that, but I couldn't think of another way. Shitty was the word. We talk to ourselves in a shitty way, and sometimes we talk to ourselves in the exact same way that we would to other people. And I pray to God that in those circumstances, you have people in your life who are brave enough to stand up for their own boundaries and correct you when you do that. Because, again, in this instance, and if you don't, I'm not trying to shame you. I just want you to understand that there's a fine line between progression and hate. There's just a very fine line. With that, though, I definitely would want to go back into what I was saying before about your reactions of yourself and your self awareness, as far as, I don't know if you did, I think it was mental thoughts. How would you feel if you were in their position? Okay. Um, and maybe just do your due diligence in practicing different levels of the people in your life, or people that you admire that maybe you don't know. Like, let's say that there's a celebrity that you absolutely adore. Would you say it to them? I don't care who it is. If there's somebody that you admire more than yourself, think about whether or not you would say that shit to them, and whether or not you think they would appreciate it. And if not, you shouldn't be saying it to yourself, and you shouldn't be saying it to the people around you. That's really my point here with that one. All right, let's move on. So, self-validation. It's highly important that you self-celebrate, as I almost knock shit over in my room. Self-validate, self-celebrate, self-validate. It is super freaking important that you self-validate, because when we are constantly having a goal that we're trying to meet, and I do this all the time, all right? So no shame at all whatsoever, okay? But when we have goals that we want to meet, it's really common for us to meet the goal and then move on. Like, okay, what's the next goal? Okay, but wait, hold on a second. You were crying over making this goal for like 3 months, and now that you finally did it, we're not gonna celebrate? We're not gonna, like, do a little dance party? We're not gonna, like, sit and say to ourselves, you know what, Jacqueline? This is something that you've really been wanting. This is something that you've been praying for. This is something that you've been working really hard for. And now that you have it, good job. You fucking did it. Dude, that person fucking said you couldn't do it. And even if there was no people, like, whatever, like, this was something that you wanted. This is something that you were going for, and you did it. Like, let's acknowledge that. Because so often we take these things that we think are so important to us, and then when we finally get it, we treat it like it was just like dirt on our shoe, and we just move on, or we're like, okay, cool, I finally got it, we're good, let's move on. But no, let's move on. Like, no, I'm sorry. No, hold up. No, let's not move on. Let's self-validate, because you worked really fucking hard, okay? There's the young you, there's you from a year ago, there's you from yesterday who was really excited to progress in this way. Maybe you got in an argument with someone, and there was a time a year ago or 6 months ago where you would have said some shit, and in this particular instance, you didn't. You better validate. You better pat yourself on the back. Like, that is massive progression. That is you becoming your ideal you, that your ideal self that you've been wanting to be, that you want to be, like, that's something to be celebrated. Okay. I don't want you to get so caught up. We get so caught up on looking on our outside selves, on the outside world. Like, okay, I did this, but I still have to do all these things. It's like, okay, that's fine. You can do all these things, but man, you worked really hard to get to this point. Like, don't skip over that shit. You have to validate that, because validating those wins, even if they're little wins, I don't care. Validating yourself lets you know from a subconscious to a conscious level that you have your own back, you're capable of meeting your needs, you're capable of setting goals and achieving them, or overachieving them. Okay, there's a domino effect of up leveling emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, that you know of and don't know of, that you feel and that you realize later, that happens in this giant, massive, universal domino effect in the universe of that is you, and that we are a part of, that is happening when you self-validate even the smallest thing. So it's super important that you self-validate everything, because you are your first best friend and you deserve to be self-validated. And that comes into the self-appreciation. So with the self-appreciation, it really isn't that much more different than validation. But with self-appreciation, I do want to say that um, you don't really have to do anything for this. You can wake up in the morning and just like, I don't know. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm like, wow, my skin's really soft. I really appreciate how my skin feels today. Or I really appreciate how cuddly my puppy is. You know, being appreciative of just in general raises your vibration. It is the same vibration as love. It is the same vibration as abundance, prosperity, and health. So many things. So being self-appreciative then reinstates that self best friend validation. I got me. I can progress in the way that I want to in my life, which gives you then the self confidence, moving from your everyday, moving from your situation to situation, moving from one interaction to the other interaction, with a lot more ease and confidence, and groundedness and clarity, and joy, all wrapped into one, because you're coming from a space that you are, what's the word I'm looking for? You're just coming from the space of your own inner power. You're coming from the space that builds all creation, that connection that you have with source, that connection that you have with your inner power of you and who you are just as a being. And that feeling is so massively powerful. That's why I meditate, is because it's a quick, easy, simple, and automatic way, and a sure thing, which, it's really when you find a sure thing in life, you got to grab onto it. Okay. But yeah, self-appreciation is mad important, and it's really a great tool to use when you want to up level. So with all of that, I'm going to close with a couple things. Self-talk. Your self-talk, if you watch the mental thoughts video, self-talk is super important, because the way that we speak to ourselves, and the way that is how we, like I was saying earlier in this video, how we speak to other people a lot of times too. So when you're in a space of depression and you're thinking things about yourself that is like, something that used to come up for me all the time is, I'm a piece of shit. It's one thing to think that. It's another thing to validate it afterwards. If you have that thought, I want you to say to yourself, you know what? I may do feel that way right now, but I know that that's not my truth, and I'm just going to self-nurture and self-love on myself as much as possible right now, and that is my only goal, is just to be with myself right now. Excuse me, that is a whole lot different than saying, yeah, I'm right, I am a piece of shit. Okay, so there's a big difference between the two. So when you take all of these different characteristics that I've laid out for you to help you in your awareness, for the self-awareness, and it's, your habits, your behaviors, how you're acting and how you're reacting, your reasoning in situations, your self-compassion, your self-nurture, your self-understanding, your self-forgiveness, your self-friendship, your self-validation, your self-appreciation, your self-talk. When you are paying attention and going at it with all these different various things as they're coming up, don't stress about it. Don't feel like you have to have your whole life figured out right now, because I'm not even sure what I'm going to have for dinner tomorrow. You know, as it comes up, just be aware of it, be your best friend, acknowledge it, talk love to yourself, okay? Because with this, it's going to overly domino effect into your relationships. When you have massive more amounts of self-compassion and self-understanding and self-nurturing, what do you think that does to your personal romantic relationship? Like, how much more loved do you think your partner will feel when you feel significantly more loved and backed up emotionally by yourself, from yourself? Like, just answer it in the comments if you want to, but it's more of a rhetorical question for yourself, just to ponder and just go over that. Because I will tell you, even my relationship with my dog Bane is better. Like, your relationship with your reality improves entirely when you increase and improve your relationship with yourself. It just is. It just works out that way, you know? People say hurt people hurt people. Well, it's the same thing in the opposite. People who feel loved love people, and they do a good job at it. So I just want you to know that you are massively powerful, and I appreciate you for being brave enough to step into your power, because I know it's not easy. And thank you for joining this video. Thank you for joining yourself. Thank you for joining me. I am super appreciative to be able to be to share this with you. And if you have any questions or comments, that's what go ahead and leave a comment. That's what the comment box is for. And I appreciate you very much. I hope that you found massive resonance in this video. I hope that it guides you exactly to the instant, transformational, progressive, genuine self-love and relationship, goals that you have for yourself and your reality. And with that, namaste.